We're going to give you a couple players you need to invest in now. These are the penny stock Badgers for 2025. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for being a listener every day, making this one of your first listens. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Over there is Justin from the Bucky Report and on Twitter and in the Discord. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Create the account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's episode, we're talking penny stock players that have a chance to greatly exceed their hype level. Why hasn't it worked for Luke Fickle so far? We have a couple different reasons. I'm going to have Justin give a percentage to each, and we're going to see if we can get it to 100% because we are not math majors. And then some boom or bust players for this year, players that could either be big parts of this or players that might not see a single snap. All right, Justin, let's start with penny stock and kind of the definition of this. And this is a show I do every year. Last year, Chris Brooks Jr. was on my penny stock list. He seems to be doing pretty well. I'm not going to mention the other people on that penny stock list because those guys maybe haven't done anything. But it's kind of a list of players that didn't have a lot of hype, haven't had a lot of hype, but you could see either this year or in the future on this Badgers football team exceeding that stock, exceeding that expectation. Who's your first penny stock guy?
Yeah, the first one for me, and I brought him up, you and I were talking prior to the show, I said Tyrel Henry. I don't think a lot is expected of him. I think people are very high on Tretch yet. And I think that you look at a guy like Eugene Hilton that's getting a fair amount of publicity and has some positional flexibility in the wide receiver room. And you wonder if he's going to get an opportunity ever on this team. And I think there's a chance there that he's a guy, he had a really good spring, has a chance to kind of bleed himself into there and maybe start stealing some reps in the fall.
Yeah, I love that one. I think that's a really good one. He looked fast and explosive in spring. He looked really quick, looked pretty sure of himself. Maybe I think sometimes we forget that there's a transition, even going from a Big Ten school to another Big Ten school. Sometimes there can be a bit of transition. He feels like a guy who could play this year. I like that one a lot, and a guy without a lot of pub.
And I think the other part of it is that I think that we minimize the fact that this offense is going to be far more structured for the offense in general. The wide receivers are going to benefit from this the most. Like, your route is your route in this. There may be some level of option routes in terms of, like, if you see this, you're running in this. There's not going to be run to space in this. It's going to be, you probably have two options. If you're seeing inside, shade, out, whatever, you're going to be going a certain particular route package. And if that's the case, that should hopefully make it far simpler for everyone to be functional in this.
Yeah, let's stay at receiver. This is something I saw first from Marine Man in the Discord. He threw some names in there. I love Dekel Crowdus for this. I love Dekel Crowdus. When you're talking
another
penny,
one in the slot, yeah.
Staying in the receiver spot, staying in that slot spot, just an absolute burner. Just an absolute freak show speed. Like, we're talking like 4.3 type speed. It shows up that there's not a lot of highlights because clearly he hasn't been that consistent. He probably struggles with contested catches. He probably doesn't have a route tree. He's not the biggest guy. But Justin, on some of the highlights, when he catches the ball, he outruns angles. He outruns everybody.
Mm-hmm.
His yards per catch is absurd coming over from Hawaii. And if you pair him, I'm just saying, let's game this out for a second. If you pair him with in the slot and then put Ballard at one side and put Vinny at the other side, that's fast as hell for Wisconsin.
I think you're going to see him not necessarily in the slot as much. I think he'll probably play outside. And I think you gave the exact reason earlier when you said it. Probably doesn't have a lot of route tree.
No,
and
I doubt it.
That's exactly what that slot guy, he's got to be your tactician. He's got to be the guy that's got to be able to work through the routes and work over the middle and be able to open things up. Now, I think about this, and this is one of those things where I look at the small receivers, and we've talked about this with a guy like Dickerson in the recruiting class, where I'm like, sometimes having that speed and having a guy run a crosser where he can just run away from people is its own benefit. Being able to just turn and run across the field and have a guy try to stay with you. Most of these guys, you're probably not going to. There's not a lot of 4-4 guys on the field.
And that's something Ohio State's done to a lot of people. They'll put a 4-4 guy in the slot and have him run a crosser or have him run a deep post, and he'll just split the safeties because you have so much attention to those Marvin Harrisons and those Jeremiah Smiths on the boundary. I love Dekel as a penny stock guy just because he brings just elite speed to this spot.
Mm-hmm.
Give me another one if you got another one.
Yeah, I think it's Jamel Howard for me. I think he's a guy that could carve out a niche for himself this season and prove himself that we can expect big things next season. But I think he's kind of worked himself into that talk of a guy who's in the discussion now. And now if he can just double down and bust his butt here in the fall, hopefully he can move himself up.
I'm going to stay at receiver, which I did this last year. I have this same guy because he's still just a redshirt freshman. I really like Langdon Nordgaard. Just this is a true penny stock. Like you got to go down the depth chart, and this is a guy in a couple years maybe. But he's a 6'4" guy with really good hands and some track background. I've seen him in last year in fall. I saw him in spring a little bit. He makes contested catches. He has some speed. He's not a burner. You can squint and see a path here for Nordgaard, which is all I'm saying. It's a penny stock.
This is more Ryan being a venture capitalist, and the company hasn't gone public. He's actually just buying a portion of the company privately.
I'm going to be the majority owner here. I'm going to pump it up. I do. There are physical tools.
There are tools there. I will agree with you. And we've said it before when I've walked up. I'm like, is that Nordgaard? Because the frame stands out. Like he's legitimately got size that is uncommon, and he does move well. Like there's some things you can picture doing with him that you can look into your offense and say, hey, I could maybe work him in this situation because of some of the size and ability to move that he has.
Yep. And I would just point out the maturation of this penny stock is as a complementary piece on offense, not as a star receiver, but a guy you can use maybe in a Chris Brooks role, something like that, red zone stuff. All right, let me give you a couple of just from the chat. Jake Coco, great, really good friend of the show, and he's in a Discord now. He said Gideon Atuka. I don't know if Atuka qualifies for a penny stock. It feels like there's too much hype there, but I love the Atuka love.
Yeah, I in all honesty, I think Atuka to me is a guy who I actually think he's going to carve out a role. I don't know if it'll be this year. Next year, for sure, he's going to be the guy that is their grunt back. That's like, I need the pile moved. And I like Jones as a physical back. It's going to take him a lot of work to get to Atuka's size. Like, this is a legit guy who cut weight and is at 220 yet. So Atuka, he's going to be a bruiser, and he's small and compact. And that's something that's a definite plus, where you have that guy who has leverage a lot of the times.
Yeah, it just packs a punch. It's like Ant-Man. You get small and you just pack a bigger punch. Mr. October says, I'll go Fearby. You and I both kind of talked about this because we're also going to talk about some boom bust players. Is this a boom bust guy? Is this a penny stock guy? Either way, this is a guy with physical tools that has just never produced. And I know this is a guy you're kind of intrigued by.
Yeah. He was one of the guys that when we watched the spring showcase, you could legitimately see the burst. And this is one of the things that I talked about with the defense in general that we didn't see last year. You and I watched a couple practices and stuff, and it's like nobody really stood out a ton in terms of like that raw athleticism. There's guys on the edge now that they have this year, and Fearber's one of them that you look and you're like, that quickness plays. Like whether or not it'll be productive all the time is one thing, but it's going to make a tackle really have to work and be aware of him. That if they make the wrong move, they're going to get beat.
Yeah. It's funny when he committed, I was looking at film and I'm like, you almost have to go back to his high school huddle film because there's just nothing he's done.
Yep.
But you're like, man, he really looks athletic in high school several years ago. Like, which is great. Let's see if it translates. Badger Insider says Tyler Jancy. That's an interesting one. That inside linebacker spot is getting really, really crowded. But Jancy is a guy I like. He's physical. He'll hit people. I don't know if he's as
Is
versatile.
That the deepest position on the defense?
Yes. I have to think they brought in so many guys in the front seven, but yes, I think so.
I think it is because I'll go down the list here real quick. Posa, Allegro, Tackett, Catalano. You have Janzy. You have Turner. I don't know if Gauthier's moved into the talk of playing time yet.
Turner's on the inside too.
Turner. So you're at least 6 deep in that spot of guys you probably feel comfortable putting on the field.
Yeah. Did you mention Heiberger too when he gets back? I can't remember if you mentioned Heiberger. Okay. Yeah, it's deep. It's athletic. It's not just deep with bodies. It's deep with guys that we kind of like for the most part. It's deep with youth, players that we think can step up. We got to take a quick second here. I think you're probably right, though. I think that probably is the deepest. We're going to go back. I'm going to give Justin 4 reasons why maybe it hasn't worked out for Luke Fickle, and we're going to give each a percentage. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second. Our incredible friends of the show over at Game Time. If you need to buy tickets to anything, and listen, we're going to Iowa this year, or we're going to Madison to watch the Iowa game. It's going to be our Locked On meetup event. We do it every year. We're going to get those tickets on Game Time because it's the fastest, easiest, simplest way to do it. Inventory to every type of thing. So if you're one of those cultured people, I don't know if you're going to find that here on this show between Justin and I, but you can go to theater, comedy, you can go do concerts, you can do all sorts of stuff on Game Time, not just sports. Plus, you get tickets to the seats before we sit down, so you know exactly where the exit to the food is, you know exactly where the bathroom is, you know exactly your vantage point to see Dylan Jones score touchdowns is going to be at Camp Randall. It's all over there on Game Time. Right now, take the guess. We're going to buy tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Justin, let's get into this. I'm super interested to see how you're going to divvy this up. All right, 4 reasons. I got 4 reasons listed here, and it could be a couple other things too. But these are the 4 I got of why it hasn't fully worked out for Luke Fickle yet. And I actually got this idea from you. You kind of threw this out there one day. I'm like, I like this idea. NIL, Wisconsin's lack of NIL strategy off the bat. Luke Fickle wasn't the right hire is not a good enough coach or was overrated as a coach. Not enough talent in the cupboard or poor coaching hires, meaning Phil Longo. Those are the 4.
I have one more, and I think the one more I would add is timing. I think that offseason was the worst possible offseason to be a coach that transitions to a program because of everything that hit in that offseason. NIL, the portal, everything hit where it's like it completely upended what the normal was to every coach in the country. And having your infrastructure was the actual most important part of your team.
So the programs with continuity, not flipping head coaches would have been.
And we've seen that bear out. The ones that had the most continuity, look at a team like Iowa. They've been running with the same coaching staff. Minnesota, a team running with the same coaching staff for forever.
Now,
they adapted better.
Rule has done better than Fickle, and he came in the same.
I will agree with that, but he also probably has more resources in general.
So that gets into our blame pot here. So we got 5. I love the timing one. If you averaged them all, it would be 20% each. So I'm going to give you the 5 one more time. The reasons it didn't work out for Luke Fickle through 2 years. The Phil Longo hire, not enough talent, or we overrated the talent when he got here. Wisconsin's NIL, or maybe our slowness to adopt NIL. I don't know the right way to word that. The timing of it, or Luke Fickle was just overrated, and we thought too much of him coming from Cincinnati. Which of those is your biggest reason?
Well, I would say Longo probably comes in at a legitimate 40% to me. Okay. I'm a big believer, and that was part of it. You and I were talking about it earlier today. I said that I feel like they were just 2 guys coming from opposite ends of the spectrum of offensive philosophy. And I just think that the place they needed to get to was too far out of each other's comfort zone, that it was never going to work. You had a guy who was heavy into passing and wants to run the football almost as just like a reason to reset the defense so that he gets what he wants to see in the passing game. And then you have a guy who's like, no, it makes more sense to run the football, and then we attack with the pass when the opportunity presents itself. And what both of those guys want to do for comfort was exact opposites. And I think that was a massive problem. And I think that personality-wise, they also didn't necessarily gel. You have a super intense coach, and you have a coach that seemed more laissez-faire with some of the stuff, and is I think that's not going to work with a coach like Fickle, who when you make a mistake with him, he feels like a guy who wants answers. And if he's not seeing what he's getting from you, I think there's a level of frustration that I think grows, because he's not a guy who suffers fools lightly. It feels like he's very ultra competitive.
Yeah. We saw some of those comments bubbling to the surface between Longo. You can read between the lines and some that it was seething. So you give that 40%. You have 60% left to play with here.
I'm going to say 25% talent. I feel like the team just was missing high-end talent that was leadership quality. This team really struggles to have guys who are running the show and kind of showing the way. And I think that was one of the problems that happened when he came in, is there was nobody really there from the actual two deep that you could look at, other than a guy like Hunter Wooler, who you looked at and were like, this is the guy who's running the show, who's leading the way. And we've struggled with that at the quarterback position, especially over the last few years. I think that's one of the things that Edwards actually really presents. He's a guy who is pretty genuine and is a really believes in being a leader. He really took the reins there. And I think that that's one of those things you need. You need guys in important. It's not just that you need those guys, you need them in important positions. Like, they need to be your most productive players, because when they are, people want to aspire to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good one there. What's your third one here? And maybe we don't need to parse out every percentage, but what's your third biggest part here?
I would say timing to me was probably the next biggest one, and I feel like that was 20%. I think if Fickle came in a year earlier, I think there would have been more groundwork laid, and he would have had a better feel for things before heading into this situation. Maybe there would have been guys he would have looked at and been like, I'm not handing you money. Like, you're not, it's not worth it to me. And I think it just, in terms of the roster, it would have been a lot more interesting having guys like Benton and Herbig with him to see what he could do. He would have more to present in terms of, like, this is what I can do with high level NFL type players. And also I think a guy like Graham Mertz would have potentially fit a little bit better if, even with Grimes. Like, I think if you had Graham Mertz with a Grimes offense and some of the creativity that's in it, I think it would have helped him and really showcased him in a better way.
Yeah, I do. I think that as well. Yeah, I'm mostly with you. I think it's like 30% talent, 30% Longo. I think I'm maybe a little lower on the Longo thing. I just think you look at the talent on this roster, and if you're Luke Fickle coming in, it's not like he's been studying the Wisconsin roster. He knows it's a good program.
Yeah.
But he had to think, man, that front seven is better. And then he gets here, and it's just, you don't have time to fix that in the whirlwind of, he had to fill out a coaching staff, figure out, like, where to live, like, all these things. It was bad, man. The talent level had dropped off a lot. And I think everybody in general had kind of underappreciated that, from the coaching staff to the fans.
We talked about it with the defensive guys. I remember doing a podcast on how barren the defensive line room was. And I said, we took like 5 guys in the last 5 years or something like that. And then you look at it, and I'm like, what people don't understand is it's not just the number of bodies. You need more bodies because your hit rate you have more of a chance for misses. So when you have 5 guys, you miss on 3 of them, you have 2 dudes that are potentially even capable. So you need to get bodies in that room, because you have to assume that at least, what is it, the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule?
Yeah, Barry's rule. You
got to figure a third of those guys are useless right off the bat. And that's no shade to whoever's in that room. It's just the likelihood, the odds say there's a third of you are never going to see the field. And a third of you will maybe be a contributor. And if you're really lucky, a third of you are going to be starters / plus players. Did we have anybody that was in that room after Benton left that you would look at and say, this guy's a true starter caliber or plus player?
So I think true starter caliber is different than plus player. I think we're splitting hairs there. I think we had guys but we had no difference makers. Yeah. And that's the thing. The Leonard defenses had difference makers. They just did. And Wisconsin did it. Now, you had 2 portal cycles, but it's really hard to find portal guys that are difference makers in the front seven.
And it's the most in-demand position. Like, you saw them go down a level for most of the guys simply because they knew how competitive it was going to be with the guys who were Power 4 guys. And plus, most of the guys at the Power 4 level have some baggage that they're not playing on the team they're on. These aren't a bunch of guys who are really productive at Power 4 schools that there's just guys ahead of them still and they want to start. These are guys who haven't shown anything, that were probably heralded coming out of high school but just haven't found their way onto the field. And it's that's a guessing game there.
Or they're just mid-level guys. Like, you look at Illinois celebrate the arrival of a James Thompson Jr. or like some of these guys. They're fine.
Like, those guys don't fit our scheme at all.
And they're fine, but they're not difference makers, And the last thing that I think bears a little more blame, and I think I would flip it with timing on your list, I think it's the NIL stuff. And it's not that Wisconsin didn't try or didn't put things in place. There's just other schools that were more willing to spend. There are other fan bases that had more donors, more collective support. more willingness to forget our ROI. And that's just the truth.
I think that is an interesting conversation because I look at it and I'm like, how much of this for Wisconsin is the fact that we don't have resources, and how much of it is that there's too many people that look at it and say, like you said, return on investment.
It's the latter.
I don't want it. There's a lot of money sitting out there that people are sitting on their hands and saying, prove to me that you're worth me giving you this before I'm going to get it. There's a chance Wisconsin can get into a $25 million roster if they prove that they deserve it. It's not going to happen if guys don't look like stars.
Losing 42-10 to Iowa would help.
I can tell you right now, if Wisconsin gets a $4 million quarterback for a season, they will hold on to that player if he proves that he's a star. They're just not going to hand it to a guy who's just on a 6-6 team. Like, he's got to be a legitimate difference maker for them to be able to fundraise at that point and say, listen, this guy has a chance to get us to a potential Big Ten title, which means a playoff berth, which means who knows at that point. Like, anything's in play.
Can I tell you, the Wisconsin Business School is a good school for a reason.
Yeah.
ROI matters. I'll just say that. We got to take a quick second here. We're going to come back and talk about some boom bust players this year. Who do we think could explode or maybe just not even see the field for this year's version of the Badgers? That's coming up next. But first, if you want to have a little more boom and a little less bust on your patio this year, you have to check out Wayfair. Wayfair is incredible as the weather's warming up. You're spending more time outside. You need more things to do, more things to entertain your guests, and it is a perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. And I said that on a previous show. That's where we got our fire pit from. We got it from Wayfair because there's a huge selection. We have a backyard. I just did a patio. It's not the most level in the world, but it's fine. It'll hold a fire pit. And you put everything on it. If I could have bought that off Wayfair, I would have. But your fire pit, your patio furniture, your string lights, your tables, patio sets, whatever it is, every style you're looking for, whether you're entertaining guests or you're just relaxing solo, that's totally fine too. Shop
my lamp in my living room is from there.
Dude, you can't beat it, man. You can't beat it. And it's incredibly simple delivery, which is free and always hassle-free, even for the big stuff. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside the Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Let's hit some boomer bust guys, Justin. I want to just lead off with the first one because we've already talked about it. It's Mason Reiger. The Reiger Tiger coming over from Louisville. He has the potential to be the best player in our front seven because of his burst, because of his tenacity. He's proven it at a power 4 level. Or he might not play because his injury history just may preclude that. That is the ultimate boom bust this year for me.
Which sadly would be a truly sad event for him, for a guy. You can tell he wants it so bad to get back out on the field and be productive. And to honestly, I think he's a guy who really, really wants to play in the NFL. And this is just destroying him. And he's a guy who probably has that level of ability, and he's being held back because his body hasn't agreed with him. I'm hopeful going forward that he's good now, and we'll see what happens. But you're right. He could have 8 sacks this year. He could have 0 snaps. Either one of those is in play.
Yep. And to your point, he's proven it. Yeah, he played at Louisville. He played against top-level competition. He had some really nice moments. Who's your next boom bust guy for this year?
I think Atuka might be a good one for this because there's a chance that he gets out there and gets you 200-300 yards, which I think would be a really nice season for a guy who's 4th on the depth chart, or he could not play. He could barely get a couple reps here and there in mop-up duty. One injury could completely change his trajectory this season.
Yeah, and it's nice to have him in the bullpen, right? Because you feel better about that running back depth chart with him. I'm going to give you one here. Tackett Curtis, I think, has a lot of boom or bust. When you think about, again, the potential upside, I thought he looked good in spring and what I was able to see. Other people have talked about that, but he's still got to prove it. Like he had some weird angles last year. He's been nicked up a lot in his career. It's time to cash in on that blue chip stock. And if he does, you pair that with Allegro. That's a really athletic inside linebacker duo, man. But he's got to be healthy. He's got to stay available. He's got to show production. So to me, he's a big boom bust guy on this defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. I think I look at him and it wasn't all just physical last year with him. He clearly needed reps and he clearly needed time in this defense to understand what his responsibilities and keys were. You said it flat out. I think sometimes he gets a little too, like, you think of a guy who just sees red and just starts going in a direction. sometimes I look at it with him and I'm like, you're not fully, your instincts are betraying you a little bit, and they're not putting you in the best position here. He needs to grow out of that a little bit. I think more experience will help. He does look better this year. We'll see how consistent that is. The body is definitely in better shape, and you're not wrong. I think there's an outside chance this is the most athletic interior group since probably like Casillas was running around out there with Levy. Like that's the last time we had two guys with this type of range. Allegro and him are probably legit 4'6" guys.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some beastly inside linebacker duos, but
they didn't have that kind of speed. Like Chanel did. Yeah. But there's always one guy and the other guy was kind of solid.
From a pure athleticism standpoint, which is different than a pure production standpoint, really.
Absolutely.
It could be because Allegro's super rangy. Again, people forget Allegro was a deep kind of safety. He was a coverage linebacker in high school. Like he can burn a little bit. Now he's 240 and he hits like a Mack truck, but that dude with tack is right. Yeah, you could have some fun there. Let me hit you with my next one. Jaden Ballard. Again, you're talking boom bust.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has never produced, but he was an Ohio State athletic prototype. He's looked great in spring. Spring doesn't always carry over. Let's be super clear on this. And, I do get a little worried sometimes when he looks great in spring. Does it mean, is he just running by our cornerbacks and our quarterbacks are 4-5-5 guys?
Let me be honest, though. Who's he going to play against that's going to have better talent than that? And then maybe Ohio State, maybe
Bama,
Oregon,
Michigan.
I don't know. Michigan doesn't typically have a bunch of 4-4 guys running around at corner. Like they typically have talent, but like there's not that many guys that are going to have his kind of track speed and his size. So he's going to run by a lot of guys. Ohio State, he's not though.
Oregon, he's not either. But I mean, Bama, he's not either. He's not running by Bama.
No. Yeah, those three. But I'm saying like if there's going to be games where he's legitimately going to have the opportunity to be one of the most athletic guys in the field.
I think it's fair. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, listen, Rico and Nazir are not bad athletes. They're just not burners, right? Yeah. There's just like a different gear.
And they're the norm to me for Big Ten corners, like athletically.
No, I think it's fair. I got one more to throw your list. What about Joseph Griffin? Or is he more of a penny stock guy to you?
I think he's more of a penny stock guy.
That's fair.
I mean, he obviously had some pedigree from Boston College, but now he's been sitting out a year. He kind of fell down the depth chart here because of that. He did some nice things in the spring, but I don't think he popped like some of the other guys did. I'll give you one of mine.
Do it.
Clayton for this year.
Ooh.
There's a chance that he could come out and have 4 or 5 sacks if he clicks early in the season and they give him some reps. There's a chance he could prove to be the most explosive guy off the edge they have. And there's a chance that he doesn't play.
Yeah, I like that.
It's legitimately, like I know they've talked about having him out there, but I'll believe that when I see it because last year did not prove to me that they were going to throw young guys out there to get their ears or their feet wet.
When you also look at that edge, I like the Clayton one. That's a good one. Because you look at that edge spot, I think Cheeks deserves reps. Yep. I think there's a chance Fierbury is out there getting reps. I think you look at some of the bigger edges if they're trying to be a little bigger with the Walkers, the Gardners, the Reigers, if he's healthy. I don't know. Where's Willer going to play? Is Willer going to factor into that rotation on the edge somewhere? It might be a little crowded for him, but he is so explosive that, geez, man, you might need to find a spot.
You could tell even against college players, they really struggle with how quick he is. And there are times there were a couple times during that spring showcase, and I realized it was against the second team, but he had guys that were much bigger than him that I was expecting them to get their hands on him and control him. He did a pretty nice job of disengaging for a guy who's that light, like he's 220. Like getting off of a block from a guy like that is not something that I expect to see you do. I expect you to hit a 300-pounder and him just get his hands on you and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you too? That's one of the spots where if you're young, you can play early, pass rushing edge. Just bend the edge, go get the quarterback. You don't have to be that scheme sound. You don't have to read
quarterback, hit quarterback.
Yeah. You're not reading the pulling guard and trying to figure out, is this, split flow? Is this counter? They just go get the quarterback, bro. That's it. It's 3rd and 7. It's not that simple. I get it. Because if it was that simple, but
he's still got to keep contained. He can't be Clay Matthews out there where I'm just going to run all over the place, get out of position.
Or he could be some versions of Clay Matthews.
Colin Kaepernick is still running, thanks to Clay Matthews.
Yeah, man, that was a fun playoff game for me as a Niners fan. But listen, y'all got your revenge too. Like, it is what it is. All right, we're gonna wrap it there. Awesome, always having Justin on. This was a fun show. When you're done here, go check out the portal with Brian Smith on the Locked On Network. Now you can see all the latest recruiting news, portal transfers. He just had a little bit about Reader the other day about how much he likes that pickup for the Badgers. He's very high on the new inside linebacker for Wisconsin. We'll wrap it there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely talk to you tomorrow on Wisconsin.